Good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a good night. It's definitely an honor of mine to be here with you on this Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Make yourself at home. Pour yourself a cup of something hot or cold. It's up to you. But it's a pretty rainy day over here. It's not a white Christmas yet. I wonder if we'll have one of those again sometime soon. It would be really, really nice. Nothing debilitating, but just to add a little bit of a glow, a layer of something on top of all the Christmas lights, so you get that nice sub-snow level, surface level glow. You know what I'm talking about? I love that. If we can get it well timed for the actual holiday, something again, not debilitating, so people can still get in their cars and get to their destinations safely. But, what do you want? You can't have everything. You can't have everything. As the barber, the Russian barber, told me when I was 15, and he said that my hair was thinning. I said, what are you talking about? He saw something that I didn't. I should have listened to him. Instead, I hated him. What was I going to do, even if I did listen to him? Go start with Rogaine? At least I managed to get through college without it being noticeable. And then I told the story before. What the hell, we're talking about snow on Christmas. Now it's back to hair. Anyway, I like shaving my head, so go to hell. So here's what I have for you tonight. Jay Dyer is returning to talk a little bit about Christmas. Every year around this time, the Marxist debunkers out there, they set out to pick apart the significance of the Christmas story and tradition and everything and reduce it to a short list of recycled myths from all over the place. And, some of it we've addressed over the years. Other times, no matter how much they have been, rebunked, they just keep coming back. And I'm more of a curious guy who has my biases and my prejudices and where I lean. I leave those out there for everybody to see. But at the same time, I ask questions and I take the answers that I get back. And from there, we form better questions or better understandings. That's all it's about. And tonight, I have more tonight because this is the time of year around the 11th day of December. Yeah, we're getting there, getting closer and closer, 14 days out. This is when we're going to see it all simmer. All the subversive stuff starts simmering. Many people who are just living their lives outside of the interwebs are just going about their business, and they're counting down the days in the calendar, not only to Christmas, but to the new year. And they're not really worried about anything else. But in the Tavistock cesspool that is the internet, there's a whole lot of shit going on, and the war continues to rage. So, and every day there's new factions of that war too. It's crazy. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's all I have to say. In the meantime, you still have plenty of time to go and make gift baskets for all of your friends, stuffed stockings for all of your friends with our affiliates. You can go to quitefrankly.tv to the affiliates page. There's Blue Monster Prep. Get people gift certificates for prepping so they can go out and get water filtration and two-way radios, food, whatever it is. That's all there. We just talked with Robin McCutcheon about the economy and what the new American dollar may look like, even if it is, if we're talking about something that can be used on a digital/crypto level, but is backed by an asset like gold. Gold and silver can be gotten on quitefrankly.gold. Our good buddy Tony Arterburn. I actually have to get on the phone with him. He said he has some Christmas prints for the 1 ounce silver rounds this year. I just give them out to everybody who deserves a gift in my family. In fact, tonight in the second half, I'm going to be giving out this last round I have laying out over here. The silver. Who knows which one of you gets that one? And I'll even throw in one of the even more valuable, Quite Frankly, wooden nickel. That's it. The wooden nickel. That's good for us. Good for you if you win it. But there's more. There's merchandise. There's tons. You can even get somebody as general sponsorship to the show. So thank you all for that. Tonight, the after hours, since we are going to be doing a lot about Christmas origin stories and all that stuff and proofs and all that, after hours, we have that really awesome documentary by Rick Larson, who I've been trying to get on the show, but maybe I have to start trying in July, about the Star of Bethlehem. The Star of Bethlehem is going to be playing. If we get off the air at 9 o'clock, we'll have about a half-hour buffer of some other really cool stuff that'll be there after the show on Quite Frankly.tv. And then the Star of Bethlehem full documentary will start at 9:30. It's a little bit over an hour, but you gotta listen to this. And a lot of that stuff I realized we got in a great conversation with Timothy Alberino about the Star of Bethlehem and what was going on astronomically in the sky about 2020 years ago, or whenever the hell it was. What do people say, that Jesus was born 4 years before Christ was born? I never get that. I thought that year zero was year zero. Like, no, actually he was born in 3 BC. So, wow. Geez, if that's really early to talk about an early due date. You know, Aurora showed up 3 days before her due date. You know, she was supposed to be on the 17th of September, showed up on the 14th. Jesus showed up 3 years early. I never got it, but what the hell? Who am I to question why? All right, so yeah, I think that's all I have for you right now. In the second half of this show, aside from taking your calls and all the responses to, I'm sure we're going to get with Jay Dyer on with us, we must get into the UFO thing in Jersey. It has reached incredibly ridiculous levels, where now there are conflicting reports and denials from both congressmen and then the Pentagon about whether or not the UFO/drones are Iranian, but that there is a mothership off the east coast of the United States somewhere that we haven't seen and somehow can't find a way to deal with. The Iranians, they've crossed the Atlantic and they're just parked out there, and so we have to get around to that. Tomorrow, there may be an impromptu stream from my phone at some point on YouTube, but the 7 o'clock show is canceled. Tomorrow, I got to get over here. We have to do some more painting in here. There's more electrical work that I have to do, some other things we're swapping out, and I want that done before the weekend. Very important that I do that before the weekend. So I'll be here early tomorrow painting and getting other things done, and then maybe sometime that afternoon, I will do a stream. Perhaps I'll go live across all the platforms, but I will not be live at 7. Maybe I will rerun it at 7 on quitefrankly.tv. But tomorrow's going to be a little bit different because there's a lot of things we got to do over here. And I think that's all the end of my announcements. Into the grab bag we go for the couple of seconds that we have left. It's 7:07. Jay is coming on in about 8 minutes. So that means I got about 5 for moving and shaking. First one is from, where the hell is this? I don't know. Study Finds? Oh, it's from Study Finds. For some reason, it's not showing up on, it's not showing up useful. I can't find it. Chris Milori. Study Finds. Silent epidemic. You want to know what it is? It's not COVID. It's herpes. 846 million people are infected with genital herpes. Are you one of them? Anyway, in Geneva, did you know that there has been a hidden epidemic sweeping the world? A new study finds nearly 1 billion people are dealing with a painful and socially traumatizing infection that has no cure. More than 1 in 5 people between the ages of 15 and 49 are living with genital herpes. A staggering statistic that reveals a global health challenge largely shrouded in silence and stigma. The shocking findings revealed by the World Health Organization expose the widespread nature of this common sexually transmitted infection, with researchers calling for urgent action. The numbers are eye-opening. Approximately 846 million people worldwide carry genital herpes, with a new infection happening every second. Every second. Translating to 42 million new cases annually. It's probably that porn star girl that just slept with 100 people in 24 hours. what a dark path that chick is on. I saw a 2-minute clip of the documentary that just came out, and she's all traumatized afterwards, crying. This says she feels like a robot. She just screwed 100 people in 24 hours. Thinking, okay, well, that would be rock bottom for a lot of people. Maybe this actually changes something for her. And then the next day, she announces that she's going to try to set the world record in spring of 2025, where she bangs 1,000 people in a day. She might be the sole source of herpes. She might be. But that's one thing for you. I hope that went over well with the family. All right, now let's go to the next one. sfgate.com. SF Tech CEO's billboards are dystopian. That's how he wants it. Over here in San Francisco. Thursday afternoon in San Francisco, on one side of Mission Street, hotel workers chanted and banged on a drum outside the Marriott marquee, part of a months-long strike for higher wages and more jobs. On the other, a tech company's billboard proclaims, "Stop hiring humans." Various versions of the provocative advertisements are emblazoned across the city on rotating screen displays, on bus shelters, and on classic vinyl billboards on poles and buildings, plugging the San Francisco startup Artisan. SF Gate spoke with Artisan's CEO about the campaign. The company has just 30 employees and is less than 2 years old. Its only existing product is an artificial intelligence sales agent called Artisan, built to automate the work of finding and messaging potential customers. It's a classic AI age idea, one of many such tools flooding the tech world. Maybe I should look into that. I definitely would like to bring on 2 main business sponsors into 2025. In fact, I'll just tell the audience that if you got a badass business, American made, whatever the hell you are, and you need a national audience, get in touch with me. Let's see, but the billboards in San Francisco are less routine. Bleak might be a better word, or mean-spirited. In a city laden with jargony advertisements, these are easy to understand. Most feature a dark-haired, purple-eyed persona and a few rows of text. Some critique humans and remote work. Artisans won't complain about work-life balance, and Artisans' Zoom cameras will never be not working today. Others are more direct. Hire artisans, not humans. Several include the line, "The era of AI employees is here." Oh, I believe them. I believe them. And one hell of a, juxtaposition there with the workers' strike across the hall. Now, I don't know how you can get AI to take care of a hotel. I guess you can robots can go, deliver food to people's doors. But that's interesting, and I guess not unexpected. Israel destroys Syrian naval assets in Latakia, if that's how you say it, after destroying much of the Syrian Air Force and its air defenses in its largest air op ever. Congrats to the revolutionaries who helped make. This is from Max Blumenthal. So, I guess there's more of your Israeli buffer zone stuff. Israel just took out whatever Navy and Air Force Syria had, so Assad is suddenly gone in blitzkrieg fashion. The head choppers have taken over the government, and Israel is now neutering the country while taking over new territory in order to, secure its own interests. As I said before, we'll see how many buffer zones are claimed over the next couple of years. I'd also like to say happy birthday to Gina from South Carolina. I missed it yesterday. She turned 58. She told me. I didn't ask. She's proud of her age. Okay? And she's a great friend of the show. And she's in great shape, too. So, you go, girl. I hope you had a wonderful one, and I'm sorry for the belated wishes. Let's get back to the show right after this. Be ready, ladies and gentlemen, and if you can, help me send this show out to people who've never seen it before. Share it far and wide, whether you're watching live or on demand. Be right back.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's
I'm Mr.
Green Christmas, Mr. Sun. It's a green one over here.
Mr.
Heat blister, I'm Mr. 101. Oh, you gotta love the Heat Miser song. For I touch. Hey, who do you like better? Are you a Heat Miser guy or are you a Snow Miser guy? I think I always liked Snow Miser better, only because he just didn't get frazzled that much. He was more of a joker, and Heat Miser was a little bit more of a spaz. And so, and I like the whole idea of being able to throw a snowball and not have it kill somebody. Whereas Heat Miser is just like dealing with lava all day. You know, it's just like, I know, I guess you can kill somebody with an icicle, but it just seemed a little bit, Snow Miser touches something and it bursts into a cloud of snowflakes, and then Heat Miser comes in, it melts down into molten metal. That just seemed very inconvenient, almost like having the Midas touch there, which, as we all know, is not a convenience at all. All right, so you let me know, Heat Miser or Snow Miser? If you want to wage war, probably Heat Miser. You'll kill everybody. So depending on what what you want to do, what your intentions are. All right, so this is what we have this time of year. And I love listening to people debate. I love learning, because I learn by listening to conversations a lot more than anything else. I do a fair amount of reading. Been reading a lot more of late, especially since we ramped up the book club, and we've been doing that for 3 years. In fact, our guest tonight is he's a multiple-time co-host on the Quite Frankly book club, Jay Dyer. And it's this time of year where most of us are lost in the bustle of the season, reflecting on a year's past, but we're still in the middle of a war. And that's what we get reminded of all the time. It's a cultural war. It's taking place mostly in digital fields, and we know what to expect everywhere we go, especially when we reach a designated time for Thanksgiving in this country or anywhere. We are offered up reason after reason to reject the old culture, the old way of doing things, patriotic reasons for celebrating and remembering the past and our wanted heroes and all that stuff. We're offered up something else in replacement of that. We embrace something a little bit more, I don't know. They want us to replace everything with something a little bit more discordant, much like modern art. From 4th of July to Thanksgiving, we are fed a steady diet of whiny, subversive nonsense to disengage us from tradition. That happens a lot. And of course, the same is done for Christmas and Easter alike. Now, right now, we're in the middle of Advent, so there's a cacophony online that is building, and it's comprised of new atheists and neo-pagans. One side wants to antagonize Christians into despondency with claims that Christmas is a meaningless amalgamation of silly pagan traditions, and the other side, well, are neo-pagans, so they're angry, I guess, because they want to be taken seriously. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. And tonight, we'll get into some of those points of contention that we see year in, year out with a friend of ours, Jay Dyer, jaysanalysis.com. He's back with us tonight. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. What do you usually do this time of year to get ready for the big day? You have a lot of traditions. Do you and the wife go to certain places? You like to do certain things to get in the mood? What do you do?
I mean, for the Orthodox Church, Christmas is huge. So, like, we have really long services. There's a lot of services. It's a huge affair. It's only rivaled by Easter. So, there's a lot going on. So mainly it's just kind of focused around that kind of stuff. But my personal experiences with my wife, I mean, we just kind of do the standard stuff everybody does with family.
Well, I know you guys are also really big into. I've watched so many film breakdowns between you and your wife, and so I got to imagine that you guys have at least a top 5 Christmas movies that you go to. Like, what if you're going to sit down and watch a Christmas movie that you know is always going to hit the spot for you? What is it? Jingle All the Way?
Actually, yeah, that's one of our favorite of the worst Christmas movies. Absolutely. There's a couple comedies that are kind of funny. Just Friends is kind of funny. But we actually kind of like Lord of the Rings around this time of year, because I remember it seems like Lord of the Rings came out in the theaters back in the day, 2003 or so, right around Christmas time. So for me, it's kind of a Christmas movie. Yeah, so those are some of our favorites, but I'd have to think about there's not actually that many good Christmas movies. A lot of them are pretty much junk, but yeah, Lord of the Rings, I guess.
Well, if I were given a little bit of time to make a list, I'd have to say that there's more good Christmas films than there are. Well, there's a lot of bad. There's just so many. So it just by laws of probability, many of them are going to be bad. But just like I can't stand most Christmas songs, but that doesn't mean that there aren't hundreds that I love. Anyway, another one that's not necessarily a Christmas film I always watch around this time. You and I did the book, The Godfather. I always end up watching around this time of year.
That's a good point. Yeah. I know this is kind of nerdy, but I like the original Star Wars. And for me, that's kind of a Christmas time movie. I guess I grew up playing so many Star Wars video games around the time of Christmas because, if you play video games, you get a video game around Christmas time, you're going to be playing it. So that's also kind of burned into my mind as a Christmas era movie.
Shadows of the Empire on N64.
Oh yeah, I played the crap out of that one. I had it on PC though, but it was a lot of fun. Rogue Squadron, like all of those, 64 era games were a blast for Christmas time. Yeah. There's also some really good. I'm getting super nerdy here, but there was some really good PlayStation 2, Lord of the Rings games too that I remember playing the crap out of at Christmas.
I remember that. And, I bought a PlayStation 5 because I like having PlayStations in the house just as an entertainment system.
Ditto. We have one too.
But I was really upset when I opened it up in the box. I realized it did not have a drive input. I had to get a separate.
I made sure to buy the one with the disc.
I said, idiot. Damn. So now I have this separate DVD player that I plug in the HDMI 3 port. I feel like an idiot anyway. 30 years. That's what I really want to say. 30 years of PlayStation. I can't believe that it's been 30 years since the first one came out. But anyhow, the real reason I have you here tonight is because we're in the middle of it all, and I wanted to talk about some of the things, the claims that pop up this time of year, whether it's by, recycled videos of Bill Maher and the Religulous movie he did years ago, or that very famously circulating video of Stephen Fry going into the Mithras elements of, where there is commonality or synchronicity between Christmas and everything else. And it's all really just to make sure that everybody who wants to believe in a religion and believe that it is true is constantly pelted with the idea of plurality. And what I wanted to ask you here is, here's one example I've got. And this is not from an atheist. This is, I believe, from a neo-pagan type. Said, Christmas has pagan roots. Europeans celebrated Yule, Midsummer, Halloween, and Easter religiously. 1,100 to 1,400 years of dressing it up as biblical does not change its root. So where do you start with this, Jay? Because I'll tell you one thing. I understand that there is a level of appropriation here. A couple of years ago, me and Timothy Gordon, we talked about the Tannenbaum in particular. We did a show on Saint Boniface and his mission work in Northern Europe and cutting down the thunder oak of Thor. So I understand that there is, at least in that instance, you have an appropriation of pagan symbols via conquest, just like a hunter would turn game into a fluffy hat or a coat and wear it as a symbol of something that they overcame. But what about things like the Yule? And where do you start with this, unpacking it all?
Right. So there's a lot of different things we should say. First thing I would say is that, Christmas actually comes out of the Orthodox East. And the dating for that is done at its earliest stage by some of the really early Eastern Church fathers. And the way they derive that date, if you go and actually read some of these church fathers in the 2nd and 3rd century, has nothing to do whatsoever with Sol Invictus, has nothing to do with anything that the Roman Empire was doing. In fact, it was all derived from the first chapter of the book of Luke. And I sent you a great article by an Orthodox priest. His name is Father Jeff Harvey, and it's a Good Shepherd Australia Orthodox Church. He has a really good article that I always share around this time of the year that explains the basics of the Christian dating of Christmas and what has really absolutely nothing to do with the pagan dating. I'll just make it really quick. Basically, in the first chapter of Luke, we can derive when Zechariah was doing his priestly duties during Yom Kippur. So this is mentioned that in Luke 1, Zechariah is doing his priestly duties. We know that that's the time of the offering of incense and whatnot on the day of Yom Kippur. This is Luke 1, 8 through 11. And that then tells us the date roughly at which Christians were able to calculate the birth of John the Baptist, or what we call in the East John the Forerunner, as being born September 23rd. If you read that chapter, this is when the announcement of the birth of John the Baptist is. So 270 days plus that equals June 24th. The observation then of the Annunciation of Christ's birth is in 6 months after John the Baptist's conception. And this is mentioned in Luke 1, 26 to 27. So in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, Gabriel is sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin whose name is Joseph, the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. So calculating September 23rd, adding 6 months brings us to March 25th. So March 25th then for Annunciation to Mary. 9 months that after March 25th gets us to December 25th. The other thing I would note is that Sol Invictus, as he points out, was established, according to the scholar Manfred Klaus, by the Emperor Aurelian in 274 AD. So it is December 24th, but this is actually 50 years after the early church father Sextus Julius Africanus mentions the December 21st. So the December 25 date is mentioned by the church fathers 50 years before the establishment of Sol Invictus. And then St. Irenaeus in Against Heresies talks about March 25th being, so he's 180 AD. He wrote a very famous big fat Christian theology book in 180. And he mentions it being dated this way as well. So we know the early Christian church was really not that concerned with what the pagan mysteries were up to, but so often people that repeat like the zeitgeist sort of conspiracy stuff is really low tier. They don't really have any idea about like Christian theology or what's actually derived from the book of Luke. And just like with Christmas in the Orthodox Church, what's called Easter is actually called Pascha. That's just the Greek word for Passover. And so it's derived from the Jewish calendar and the fulfillments of those Jewish feasts in the Christian ceremonies and the establishment of the church in the 1st and 2nd century. Thus, just with Christmas, so also Easter has nothing to do with pagan rites or ceremonies. So the fact that centuries later in, say, 600-700 in the West, when you have conversion of Germanic tribes, the fact that they had some date that they celebrated or that Druids celebrated on the same date is really has nothing to do with the celebrations that are decided upon by the Christian church in the early days, which relate to, they're not totally aligned with the Jewish calendar, but they relate to it. And thus the fulfillment of the Jewish calendar in the revelations and the dates that Jesus fulfills according to the new church, the New Testament fulfillment.
You know, the other thing there too, it's all very interesting because the one thing that people will say, even without blinking, is that, you know, Jesus wasn't born in December, right? He was born in June. It's just a knee-jerk thing that people who like to pull an actually on you say, you know, he was actually born in June. And, you know, I usually just say, oh, okay. Because what am I supposed to do? And when you ask, well, how do you come to that conclusion? Usually they'll say, well, because of the Roman census. That was around the time of the Roman census, and they try to line it up with the census. Other people have tried to say that they get wrong where we are latitudinally and longitudinally as far as that whole part of the world. Would it have been December? Would it have been cold? Would it still have been a harvest? Would the shepherds have been out doing their thing if it was in the middle of the winter, thinking that they were living in New York or something like that. But that's where a lot of people will come at you with. Almost like a did you know, a bar trivia thing. When was Jesus born? They'll just say June. So where does that comes from? Just a misunderstanding of or somewhere along that timeline, because you stopped in June for a second there. It's just a misunderstanding of that timeline then.
That had to do with John the Baptist. So I stopped in March because they're calculating it on the basis of what's in Luke 1.
Yeah.
So really it's nothing in other words, John the Baptist's birth would be June 24th. So that would be John the Forerunner. And that's calculated as 270 days after the announcement that Zechariah's wife would have a baby. Elizabeth would have a baby. That's John the Baptist, right?
Yeah.
So then if you read Luke, there's that point where Luke describes Mary and Elizabeth meeting. And so we know about the Annunciation date-wise from that time. And so that's why we get to December 25th is 9 months after this, the Annunciation being March 20, excuse me. The Annunciation is, March 25th, according to Irenaeus. So you got the early church saying that it's dated from, this is the most famous theologian of the church in the 2nd century. So he wrote a big giant book called Against Heresies. So in other words, he's telling us that he's a bishop. He's not just some random dude. He's like a bishop of the church, Leon, Irenaeus of Leon. He's telling us that we date this from March 25th for John the Baptist. And then 9 months later, for the Annunciation, then 9 months later is the birth of Christ. So, I mean, whether you think that's wrong or right, like that's the explanation that the 2nd century church gives for where they're getting the dates. And it's from the book of Luke. It has nothing to do with trying to date it to the Roman census or whatever. It's literally dated just like Easter or Pascha. It's dated according to the Jewish ceremony. So again, if you read that article, like the way that we would know is because of Zechariah's priesthood. So Zechariah is serving as there's a cycle of what priests do in the Jewish calendar, what they do when they're in the temple, when they're elected to be the one to offer the incense. It's described in Luke 1. So that's where they're getting that date from. It has nothing to do with what the pagans were up to. And this is the assumption that a lot of people who have that argument or that claim make, is that really Christianity was not a divinely established religion. It's just this thing that was blended with all this pagan stuff, and their emperors controlled the church or whatever. But you can look at the Council of Nicaea in 325, and you can read the church fathers prior to Nicaea, and they don't teach anything fundamentally different than after the Council of Nicaea. So that it's just always built on these kind of outlandish assumptions that there's this massive change after the Constantine created the Catholic Church or whatever. It's just not true. And you can actually read the people who were Christians from the first 2/3 century. And there's an abundant, all of these books up here in the red, that's abundant amount of information from that time period. So it's not a mystery. It's not like we don't know. You can actually go read these people in those time periods. And there's many church fathers who are very famous, and they talk about the services. They talk about, Pascha. In fact, one of the biggest controversies in the 2nd century, the time of Irenaeus, between the East and the West, is about when to date Pascha or Easter. So if the very first controversy that occurs is over when to actually date Easter, should it be specifically the Jewish calendar or something else, tells us that this is not a pagan invention later or centuries later. It's one of the earliest controversies in the church. It's called the Quartodeciminarian controversy over when to date Easter. And if you read those church fathers, Easter is not Ostar, or that's just a later Germanic term. That has nothing to do with Pascha. They call it Pascha. And it's just amazing to me that people are this ignorant. I'm not trying to be rude to people that disagree, but like it's not very hard to go read, people from the 2nd century writing about Pascha. And in the Orthodox Church, it's very clearly it's very clearly Passover. In other words, the Greek word Pascha means Passover. So you would never mistake Easter for something pagan in the Orthodox Church when the entire ethos is Passover from Exodus, you see.
What about just the etymology of the word Easter? and also visuals of things like bunnies and eggs, where if there is very fundamental foundational differences between these pagan practices and, of course, the establishment of the Christian church, then where does the overlap happen, at least in popular culture? How does that start?
Right. So there was I was trying to remember the exact spelling. It's Eostre, which is just the Germanic word for that goddess, but it's also a Germanic word for that season. So, it's like, think about the days of the week, or the way we talk about the months, right? Sometimes January or Janus, right? Sometimes the names for things did signify a god, but that's not the only reference that those words have. So in other words, you can have a term that also refers to a time period and not necessarily a deity or a goddess. So this is what's called a word concept fallacy. A lot of times people make the mistake of thinking that because a word is used, it only has one meaning or reference. Words can have multiple meanings or reference depending upon context and depending upon intentionality of the author. So just because the word Ostara meant to Germanic tribes a goddess does not mean that the festival or the time period of spring is necessarily a reference to the goddess. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. It does. And, when it comes to something like Sol Invictus as well, I admittedly, I want to do more reading on this so that the knowledge is my own. But that is one thing that I did have in mind. A question long since posed to me about, whether or not Sol Invictus was shifted itself to December in order to compete with Christianity, which was already the dominant faith by the 4th century, or was it the opposite? Because I don't know any Christians who are obsessed with the date of December 25th being accurate, or although, some may have better reasons than others for believing it because they may do the research and they do what you do and stuff. But this does lend itself, this whole idea lends itself to other theories about the early church, namely the story that Constantine's conversion wasn't authentic and that he just wanted to see Christianity married with Roman traditions and feast days in order to co-opt the religion. But that's, like you're saying here, that the timelines don't support that theory.
Yeah, both the celebration of the what we call Christmas, Christ Mass, or the Divine Liturgy, and the dating of Pascha or Easter are at least 2 centuries, 150 years prior to Constantine. So no, there's no way really to conceive of anything malicious on the part of Constantine on the basis of these dates. So in other words, these dates were well established far before Constantine ever existed. And again, you can read, Cyprian, you can read Ignatius, you can read Irenaeus, you can read Tertullian, you can read Origen. They're not all saints, but they're all what are called writer, or like Origen and Tertullian didn't end up being saints, but they're called patristic writers because they still give us an insight into what the thought of the Christian church was in the 2nd century. And again, there's vast amounts of material from this time period. There's thousands of pages of material from this time period. So it's not like we have to do a whole lot of guesswork. There might be certain areas where it's unclear exactly, but we know that they had a liturgical form of worship. We know they believed in the saints, the relics of the saints. All this stuff is very early. It's a post-apostolic period. You can find all this stuff. So no, it's not really anything to do with Constantine. I mean, if people want to doubt the conversion of Constantine, I mean, I guess that's up to them. But even if you did doubt that, that really has nothing to do with proving or disproving anything relating to what we're talking about, because, like I said, the church fathers that are prominent at Nicaea and after Nicaea teach all the same stuff as the ones prior to Nicaea. For example, St. Athanasius, very famous defender of the deity of Christ at Nicaea and so forth. I mean, Athanasius has festal letters that he writes to his all of the churches under his bishopric for Easter, for Pascha. I mean, you can read his Paschal letters. So the very people going to the Council of Nicaea have Paschal Easter letters, they're famous letters that you can go read. So, and he talks about the celebration of the feasts and all that. So no, the origin of these things, although it does pick up elements of the cultures that surround the Roman Empire, or that you could even say are more so Greek influenced, like Byzantium. Like the origin is really Hebrew. I mean, all of these are Hebrew root. So I don't mean Hebrew roots movement. That's a heretical thing. But I'm talking about, again, Easter is literally Pascha. It's Passover. And I mean, it doesn't really make any sense without Passover. And so the fact that, for example, Christianity goes into a place where, say, German tribes celebrate their version of the rites of the goddess or whatever because spring overlaps with that or something, that's really just historical coincidence. There's no evidence or proof for any kind of conspiracy theory there, when all of the stuff that I'm talking about far predates the pagan tribes converting.
And every time I talk to you and guests of your caliber, it is always very shocking to me to be reminded of how much there really is as far as a historical record. Because I mean, when you think about anything around 3rd century, I just feel like everything has already been turned to dust. There's nothing left behind. There's a very small amount, but there, as you said before, thousands of pages on any number of areas of what's been going on around there. Let me ask you about one thing in particular, and that is the history, the preserved histories of the pagan, Germanic, Druid kind of, everything that's going on in Europe prior to Christianity's spread throughout the continent. What has been preserved directly from them, or was it all really just recorded by early Christians who are interacting with these tribes and nations?
No, the latter. Most of what we have in terms of scholarly, documents, academia, is literally just given to us through the monastic scholars and missionaries of that time period. So, for example, I had some grad classes on this, so I know about it. Like, if you go and study Beowulf, a lot of scholars think that there's a recension that Christian monastics did for those texts, and so there's sort of proto-Christian elements in Beowulf, which probably suggests that there were Christian monks that translated or preserved it, and then maybe gave it some sort of Christianish meanings or allegorical, symbolic meanings. Some people think that about, you mentioned like Odin, some people think that monks were even tweaking those stories. And so Odin dying on a tree and this kind of stuff might have been Christian missionaries preserving the text and then kind of tweaking it to help convert the pagans. So all that's possible. But what it does show is, as most people I think will admit, is that there's not really a lot of knowledge of the ancient European pagan traditions. If you go into a lot of these groups, you'll find that the neo-pagan, Wotan, Odin, all these different people, they're actually they're actually doing a lot of reconstructing work. So they're kind of making it up as they go. If you read a lot of Tolkien, Tolkien was a specialist in that arena, and he was working with the Eddas and these various Icelandic manuscripts and whatnot when he was writing Lord of the Rings. And there's just not a whole lot of material that's preserved. There's some, but it's not like there's all this like arcane, ancient, pagan heritage lore that's handed down. It's not. And most of the modern pagan groups literally are just reconstructing and making up as they go. And that's not surprising, because if you look at a lot of the other cults and esoteric groups, for example, on my channel, we just lectured through almost the entire 500-600 pages of the recent Cambridge publication of the Cambridge Companion to Western Mysticism and Esotericism. There's multiple chapters on the pagan tradition, the ancient mysteries, the ancient Greek Eleusinian mysteries, the Mithras. I read all those chapters, and what was funny is that many of the neo-pagan movements, the scholars are admitting that they're just making it up as they go. There is no ancient traditional pagan religion, so you have to reconstruct it. Think about Wicca. Wicca is that very thing. Gerald Gardner studied under Crowley and literally just made up an ancient religion. And part of what Crowley did was create a cult, a kind of grad school to where you learn to make your own cult. Literally, when Crowley was rewriting the OTO Thelema rituals, he admits he just literally just started making it up as he went. And what you'll find is that that's pretty much the case amongst all these groups, is that there's not actually an ancient tradition. And that's very unique when you I mean, the Christian church is unique because whether you like it or not, there is at least, again, a very well preserved manuscript tradition, not just of the New Testament, Old Testament text, of which there's thousands, of which there's no ancient text that has that level of attestation and number of manuscripts like the Bible and the New Testament. The church fathers, as you just mentioned, again, thousands of pages, all of those red books right there, which is about 11 volumes, most of that is from the first 3 centuries. So that's outstanding compared to, I mean, if people want to resurrect some kind of neo-pagan whatever, like they don't have anything. They would be ironically going from Christian monastic translations in the 7th, 8th century. And if you go take a class on Beowulf at the university, a grad class, they'll tell you all this.
Let's get into a couple other. I'll just pick up a couple more figures, like Santa Claus, for example. Now, as far as Saint Nicholas, what has become now, I mean, this cartoonish, display that we have, this, where we live right now. I understand the difference between the two and how anything can be taken and bastardized in a commercial setting. But there's a lot of people who would say that Santa Claus himself comes from Odin, and that the flying reindeer and the red and white suit is very, it harkens back to red and white magic mushrooms, that if you take it, you hallucinate. Maybe that's how the reindeer fly. So again, there is more of that going back to the Yule with the reindeer and everything else. So with the meshing of all that together, from the historical figure that is St. Nicholas to the red and the white and the reindeer, how do you address that?
Right. So there are way later Russo, Finnish, there are like Russian myths of like guys out in the woods who are Father Frost or something like. I mean, he even has a name. I don't remember his name, but that really has nothing to do with the actual origins of Saint Nicholas. So this is Saint Nicholas. This is an actual guy in the Orthodox Church. He was at the Council of Nicaea. In fact, he's famously the bishop who slapped Arius in the face in the midst of the Council of Nicaea. It's a famous story. You can actually go and read about St. Nicholas in terms of his history. We 1 year ago went to his shrine. So I've actually been to St. Nicholas's shrine. Not that necessarily proves anything, but it proves that it's really nothing to do with the Amanita muscara, mushroom, father toadstool, or whatever the myths of the pagans are. They might have over time had a kind of a syncretized blending of the stories of, hey, what we believe about St. Nicholas is kind of related to what we believe about, Father Toadstool or whatever, the pagan mysteries. But that's just a kind of a thing that happens over time. It has nothing to do with whether or not the actual St. Nicholas is a guy who existed or not, which he did. I mean, I go to St. Nicholas Orthodox Church, so we have a very close connection to the actual Santa Claus. But you're absolutely right that over time, I think Coca-Cola played a huge role in taking that imagery of, I mean, you'll notice like the original St. Nicholas, like he kind of, he's got red garments and he's got his vestments on. So you could kind of see how this might turn into, Santa Claus. But yeah, I think American corporations played a huge role in that and sort of corporatizing it and divorcing it from anything to do with Christian tradition. But of course, that doesn't mean that all the legends around this saint are true, or that there weren't much later syncretized blended myths about the two, the pagan and the Christian figure.
Oh, yeah. And I can totally see it. Anybody who spends any time on the internet should be able to understand how when you leave an idea to any kind of culture or subculture, what happens to it over time. I mean, just look at the timeline of development for the Wojak and any other meme, any genre, subgenre of memes out there. I mean, there are 15-year storylines now as to how we got to these levels of memes, and what it's all micro references. It's become religious in many ways. Yeah,
exactly. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
But so what we're talking about here is mostly all just in Europe. When you get into the Bill Maher's, the Stephen Fry's, we get a lot of taking from everywhere around the world. Egypt with Horus and Osiris, even though the one thing I will say is that when it comes to December 25th, The only place that I personally, with what little research I've done, have been able to find a direct match with is Sol Invictus. And of course, we know that the timelines show that that was moved to compete with Christianity and not the other way around. It wasn't. So what with Mithras, I really don't even see anything that's mixed on where, that's December 25th. I didn't see that anywhere. Egypt.
The thing, yeah, it does. So there's nothing to do with December 25th with that. But what the overlaps with Mithras are the importance of blood sacrifice. You get a baptism of blood in the Mithra cult.
There's a lot of virgin births.
But I mean, there was like this is the thing is that like almost all ancient religions in some way utilize a lot of these kind of archetypal ideas. The virgin, right? The death resurrection ritual. That's like literally every religion. So it's a fallacy, like a literal fallacy to think that because there's similarities that therefore they have a common origin, right? They may, but just because they bear similarities or there's some overlap, again, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow from that therefore Christianity is taking from the pagans. It's a fallacy. You actually have to demonstrate it, because you could literally argue the reason it's a fallacy is that it could go any way. You could go either way. Well, how do you know that it's not the pagans borrowing from the Christian tradition, right? So it'd be like saying that the great analogy people make is like, well, let's say I create a company and it looks very similar in terms of its symbology to the Apple logo, and I call it Bitten Apple, right? And then 5,000 years from now, archaeologists look back and they say, oh, look, here's this guy, he's got a company, it's called Bitten Apple, and then we got this other company called Apple, and they're around the same time, so Apple must have borrowed from Bitten Apple, right? I mean, that would be false, because you're just you're doing guesswork thousands of years later about which one came first. And just because something came first, it also doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that came later necessarily borrowed from it. It could, but not necessarily. It might have arisen with its own tradition, irrespective or independent from this other thing that had similarities. So all of the ancient religions have all of them have certain things that are similar, but it doesn't follow from that they have the same origin or that they're the same religion. It's just a fallacy. Let me give you some examples of a couple things where there's a great article written by a scholar, actually in a non-Christian book. So there's a book called The Mysteries, and this is, everybody loves Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. They think it's also mystical and deep. Well, here's a book called The Mysteries that's written, that's edited by Joseph Campbell and includes a bunch of Carl Jung stuff. And there's a great essay in this. I didn't expect it to be what it was. It's called The Christian Mysteries and the Pagan Mysteries by a guy named Hugo Ronner, who's a scholar from about 50 years ago. And the whole essay is just going through all the ancient mystery religions and comparing and contrasting to the Christian religion in the early church in the first, second, and third century. And what he notes is that the Christian mysteries, or what we call the sacraments, or Paul talks about the revelation of the mysteries in Christ, is that there's a clear difference. The difference is summed up in three main points, he argues. Christianity is a mystery of revelation, meaning that the mysteries become clear. They are revealed to us. They do not remain inscrutable, unknown mysteries. Secondly, Christianity is mainly concerned with ethical living and concerns. The mystery religions were not concerned with ethics. They weren't concerned with the Ten Commandments. Were you a virtuous person or whatever? It's all sacrifice ritual to control the gods, right? And Christianity is a mystery of salvation by grace and not by all of these crazy rituals and rites and whatever. And also Christianity is pro-history. The mystery religions are unanimously anti-history. You're flying from history and time to get into the realm of the gods, the ancient golden times, whatever, the primeval, the transcendent mystery realm. You're trying to get away from time and space in the mystery religions. And Jesus came into time and space to sanctify time and space because we're resurrected in bodies. The mystery religions don't teach resurrection of the body. Egypt is, of course, a unique outlier in that, but you could argue that Egyptian monotheism and resurrection might have been influenced by Joseph's presence or Moses' presence in Egypt, if you read the book of Genesis. So we don't know in a lot of these ancient historical cases how it went down. There's a lot of guesswork that goes into ancient history. There's far more that we don't know than we do know. So when people try to make these sort of outlandish dogmatic claims that, oh, well, we know that Judaism and Christianity borrowed from all these pagan religions, if you focus on and look at the contrast, the difference between the religion in the Mosaic Law and the Pentateuch, the difference in the revelation in the New Testament in Christ versus the religions around the surrounding cultures, there's far more of a contrast and difference in fundamental theology than there is superficial similarity.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's really when you bring it up that way. I think that's why it brings me back to the question, not very dissimilar to the one that you, me, and Tim Gordon discussed the last time we were all on together. That question being, why Christianity? If there are similarities, if there are synchronicities, if there are these things there, but if a person had no faith to speak of, but they were curious and they were actively searching and they want to figure something out for themselves, what about the story of Christmas do you believe sets it apart from everything that came before or after it? Because faith is at the center of the matter no matter what. But this is also why we were talking about the importance of the validity. I think a lot of people put a lot of energy into the validity of relics and miracles and all that stuff, because I think everybody would wish that they can just have a road to Damascus moment and get struck by something that they saw something they can't unsee. That, you know, sometimes the philosophy of everything, the research, the thinking, all that stuff can just break your mind because you're talking about things that are mainly metaphysical and beyond our understanding. So that's why when I brought up relics and miracles, why they might be so important to most people is because it provides maybe some sort of empirical data to support the faith. What do you find could be a really great source of empirical data to say 100% this is the truth?
Well, I mean, as a Orthodox person, I mean, and a person who's in the philosophy, I don't know that there is a strong empirical thing that I could point to, because anything in the empirical realm is going to be subject to interpretation, and you're going to interpret your empirical data according to the worldview, the paradigm that you have. So I would say the strongest evidence would be you just have to go to an Orthodox divine liturgy and begin to experience it for yourself. That's the only empirical experience that I could recommend. Most Orthodox churches, if you want to check out a relic or what, like they're filled with relics and they're filled with icons. So go check out an Orthodox liturgy, especially during Christmas. But again, like I was thinking of things that contrast the mystery religions to the revelation of Christianity.
Yeah.
The mystery religions are clouded. History is cyclical and not beginning, middle, end. There's usually a goddess and an escort who's an escort to the male god. There's no escort goddess in Christianity. The mystery religions almost always utilize drugs, some kind of hallucinogenic drug. That's in the Cambridge Companion, the history of the Eleusinian mysteries. They utilize hallucinogens to have the revelation of the true, anyway. And the mystery is always, you are God, right? The mystery religions, the ultimate secret, literally, if you read the Cambridge Companion, like it says across the board, like all these ancient mystery religions are basically just telling you at the end of the process and of the initiatory process, oh, by the way, you're God. I mean, it's just like, I mean, every self-help guru would tell you the same thing. The mystery religions are anti-history. And so I think that, you know, Christianity is not a cloudy religion. Orthodox Christianity doesn't teach a cyclical view of history. There's no goddess. You're not going to get a shortcut to illumination through drug use. There's no hatred of history. And rather than saying you are God in the Orthodox Christian idea of theosis, you become God through grace, through participating in the divine energy. So it's become a son of God through grace. You don't become God himself, but you do become deified. Yeah. So I would say those are all very big contrasts to the ancient mystery religions. And empirically, I would just say you'd have to go check it out.
Yeah. And I guess the closest I've ever gotten to anything like that is really in analyzing the opposition to all this stuff, because I respect anybody's skepticism. I know when somebody is, I still come upon questions that crop up for me along the way, and
we all do.
And I really, especially if somebody approaches a dialectic or anything like that in good faith, I think it's great because it's it's a growing experience. But I guess it's just enough for a lot of people out there to point out that throughout history, apparently just saying, human beings have worshipped a vast array of gods over the course of history is enough to just take everything down. And as in these, on these HBO specials and stuff, and that in itself is their gotcha question or their gotcha statement, because ultimately they believe that every Aztec deity was bullshit as well, especially when we're talking about like new atheism. But there is a certain reverence still that they have for example, Native American religions, because all this stuff creates an environment of plurality. And plurality is the primary weapon that is used to undercut Christianity in particular. That's the thing. The first thing I started noticing time and time again before I ever even considered going back to church regularly is that even in these very kumbaya ways of introducing and really plugging the idea of plurality, it's all about putting a barb in the side of Christianity, and because that seems to be in the crosshairs of every major power out there.
Right. Well, again, the basics of Christianity are you're going to have objective morals, 10 commandments. A man has dignity because he's made in the image of God. So you can't kill, at will. It limits the state. The state can't say it's God. It teaches people to live in sobriety with self-control. It doesn't say the world is evil. You don't have to flee from the world. You just have to live according to, the covenant, so to speak. So I think, those are all net positives. They're kind of obviously good for mankind, and they're not good for, the control system of this world. So they have to try to subvert it, try to control it, try to destroy it. The devil's been trying to do that for 2,000 plus years to destroy the church. Still here. I think it's the Orthodox Church. I don't think it's the Roman Catholic Church. I think the Roman Catholic Church is obviously evil, but, I think there's all kinds of historical testimonies and evidences you could look at like that. The fulfilled prophecies, the messianic prophecies about Christ himself, of which there are dozens and dozens and dozens throughout the Old Testament. There's not just 5 or 10 like Protestants think. There's dozens all over the place, probably 100 plus. So, there's a lot of different evidences that one could look at, but I think you're right to say that, the new atheism and all of that. I actually think that's a promoted by the establishment as well. I don't think that's any kind of real counter establishment movement. And then if you look at the argumentation that they give, it's actually not a very good argument to say that, well, all these humans have always worshipped various deities, therefore this other one is the one that you worship is also false. Well, that doesn't the fact that people did this doesn't actually tell me whether it's true or false. So that's actually a fallacy. So, because people did things in the past, even if they're right or wrong, that doesn't tell me that the people that are doing it today are necessarily true, that it's wrong or right. So again, there's all these logical leaps. And what's amazing to me is that some of the new atheists, like they're not even proficient in basic logical fallacies.
No, you're right on that. And of course, this is your forte. I mean, you spend most of your time seeking out debates, and I've watched many of them. And it's one of those things where I take a look at it, and I can really respect two intellectual giants, one that is just, a theist and one that is an atheist, just going at each other. And I want to see whose position is winning out logically. But to your point, new atheism is really built on this Comedy Central format of delivering information. It's largely based and built upon a set of sneering inside jokes. It's not a lot of thinking, and I'm totally comfortable with people being skeptical, but this is just you can just tell if you watched any episode of John Oliver, you know exactly what you're going to deal with when you are talking to an atheist these days about this subject. So Anyway, that's Jay. It's been a wonderful time with you tonight. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Any new appearances you got coming up? What you got going on for the rest of the holiday? Or if there's any really important pieces of information about this subject you didn't want to leave on the table?
I think we hit most of the highlights. I mean, I've got a lot of debates with academic atheists and people like, Dr. Malpass or Matt Dillahunty, Stefan Molyneux. I've debated all those kind of academic-minded atheists if people want to go check out those old debates. But no, I think we kind of hit all the main points I was thinking of. Thank you for having me. It's always great to come on. I love the conversations we have. So many good book reviews that we've done over the years. But I would say I'm going to be covering some more of the espionage topic. I've been covering this really excellent history of on my channel, the spies of the British Empire who were sent out to find gold. To find oil, black gold. And that really helps explain like the setup of the modern Middle East, how we got to where we are in the modern Middle East through these famous spies of the British Empire. So we're covering that over my channel as well as all the open forums and that kind of stuff. And maybe shifting over into doing a lot more comedy. So I might be doing a show with Sam Hyde. So
nice.
If that happens, then we'll be shifting into probably doing a lot more comedy than we have been. So less debates and more comedy if that comes about.
Well, that'd be great, man. It's always good to move things around. And if that ever brings you by any chance into the New York tri-state area, you got to come visit.
We'll be up there that way. Yeah,
you got to visit the studio. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I'd love to, man. Love to hang out.
All right, brother. Have a great night. Merry Christmas if we don't speak, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, and by the way, if people want a good wacky Christmas gift, you can always get my books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, signed copies at Jay's Analysis in the shop. And Alex won his judgment, so I should be continuing to do this, hopefully, for the foreseeable future, I guess. And then I'm working on Esoteric Hollywood 3, so that book will be out pretty soon, too.
So that's the fourth hour on InfoWars on Fridays, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So you can listen to Jay there on the fourth hour on Fridays on InfoWars, wherever you listen to it. I usually bounce in on those slots on the TalkStream app and all that. I like the audio streams, but it's great to hear from you. I hope I have jaysanalysis.com is in the description of the episode. I hope people go buy some books and enjoy the rest of your work. Thanks, my man.
All right, thanks, Frank.
All right, take care. All right, there he goes. It's 8:07 p.m. Let's take a really quick break. When we come back, going to do your calls. We're going to bring that maybe until about the bottom of the hour. That's only about 23 minutes from now. And then we're going to go right into the UFOs. We're going to go right into the UFOs. And today they dropped the term mothership. Dropped the term mothership. Of course, it's an Iranian mothership. It's not like a blue avian. We're not talking about... They're not talking about anything too crazy. I don't even know how the Iranians could stay up. I don't get it. When I ever think about the Iranian Navy, I think about like Hot Shots Part 2 or something like that. Just like little river boats. Maybe I'm wrong. Probably am. But we'll be right back. Bring all of your comments and questions. You can send them to quitefranklysuperchat.com. Put them into the Rumble rants. I can't wait to read your Rumble rants and also the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv. Be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly. Quite frankly.
Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch, Quite Frankly, with Frank.
How dare you?
All right, welcome back to the Quite Frankly Cafe. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Coffee is on, the coffee is hot. All right, so it's always great when Jay stops by. We're going to open up the lines now. 914-200-0269, whatever you want to bring to the table, go ahead. go ahead. It'll be wonderful to hear from you. Stove Soup says, great guest tonight, Frank. Thank you. And shout out to all the Franklies and Franciscans. I hope to get really Christmassy next week. I really do. Well, we have to. It's the last week. And then that next Monday, the 23rd, I'll have my parents in here. We'll have a little bit of a family stream, and then it's, that Christmas week gets broken up pretty good by the holiday. But, and then after that, it's the New Year's Eve disruption. Our first show back on the air, I think it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday. I think Thursday the 2nd. You know who we got called into the show right now? It is a good friend of mine. I spoke about him last night, actually. It's Wayne Smoldridge. How are you, Wayne?
I'm doing fine. I'm calling you back now.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. I shouted you out the other night, and people don't believe, because you're active in the chat room. You've been calling in for years. You celebrated your 90th birthday this year, right, Wayne?
Yes, but actually I'm not 90.
What are you?
I'm 90 3/4.
See? You're almost 91. My gosh.
Yeah. See, my birthday is just short of yours.
What are you, in March? Well, late March?
March 30th. March 30th.
Oh, wow. Only a couple of days. You know, Wayne, you know what this means, right? This means if you're in March, you're going to be 91. This means that next Christmas is almost going to be, you're almost at the Nat King Cole cutoff, the Christmas song. You get wished a Merry Christmas whether you're 1 to 92. Once you get past,
right.
you don't get
well, it drops off after that. Then
you don't get any more special treatment after 92, Wayne. Just let you know.
Well, that's the way it goes. But anyway, I also want to let you. I got the 3 books for our book club. And that's why I'm getting lined up for that. I like that. Those things. I'm not sure about the video things, but.
Oh! Well, you know what? The film club is going to be something else. I think it'll actually be a lot easier to do, because obviously with film club it'll just be, all right, everybody, watch this movie. And we're going to get together on this night, maybe the last Monday of a film club month. So everybody has about 3 weeks to. What I would really love is to be able to get everybody together for a group viewing, but that's not going to be feasible. So I just think,
no, that's not possible.
Yeah,
no.
But I'm glad you're going to be with us for book club. We're starting off with Fahrenheit 451, of course.
That's right. When I contacted Amazon, I said Fahrenheit 591.
Yeah. Yeah.
They corrected it for me, but I got the book. I got all three. I got all 3 books. The Big Fisherman and Tom Sawyer. Yeah.
That's great. I can't wait to read Tom Sawyer, because that's just one of those things.
Yeah, you sort of know, but you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There are certain works of art, whether it be written or visual or something like that, a movie, that just get bigger than itself. They become so culturally important that you get all the references, even if you didn't even read or watch it. And that's I want to get all that Mark Twain stuff out of the way. And
Mark Twain's very good. I always liked him, but I never really read these books. Really, honestly.
There you go. We do that together.
So anyway, well, I just want to let you know that I'm calling in, and I'll call in when I have something pertinent to call about. But other than that, I'm just sort of a greeter on YouTube chat room. So.
Well, you do very well, Wayne. You're. I hope I can be as active as you are when I am 90 3/4. Thanks for the call.
And thank you. I appreciate talking to you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
There you go. Such a nice man. Such a Southern gentleman. There you go. Like that. I like that. I always like getting calls from him. We've getting calls for a long time. All right, Jay Britt says, great discussion with Jay Dyer as always, Frank. Thank you. Well, thank you. Jay Semmel says, great guest. I can't wait for the UFO discussion. Oh, it's a discussion and a half. What the hell is going on right now? Cave Toad says, debunk the rebunk, Frank. Keep it up. Dawn says, Merry Christmas, Frank. Much love to you and your family. Thank you, Dawn. This is all on quitefrankly.tv. And then Sean Joe with 2 cookies. Well, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Do I have anything else I want to throw out there first? No? I mean, there's plenty that we talked about. So, again, you can comment on whatever you like. We haven't totally moved on from that. Call in for comment if you'd like. But here is what I wanted to get into now. It's 8:15. Let's just jump into it after this call. 608, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Frank. It's Jenny. How you doing?
Jenny, good to hear from you. Doing well.
Yeah. Doing well?
Yes.
Good. I just called because I wanted to tell you that I watched the After Hours. It was the Star of Bethlehem.
Yes.
You had that on Sunday, I think it was?
Yes, and it's going to be on again tonight. But I wanted to be... Yeah.
It is fascinating, Frank.
Yes. It is.
I just loved it. It is just fascinating. Thank you for showing that again.
Well, it's going to be on. It's going to be on a little bit. Well, it'll be on the same time. I think I started that. No, that one might have gone on late night on Sunday after the feature. I think we did It's a Wonderful Life and then that. But tonight, when we end at 9, that's going to start at 9:30. So even if you're watching it on the East Coast, it'll be done by like 10:45 or whatever. And it's just so fascinating because not only do we have, for example, tonight with Jay Dyer talking about the actual chronological, how does that 9 months of time shake out over the course of a year, as you know, as put together by what we learned through the Gospel of Luke and everything. But as you see in that, there is an astronomical element to this that actually not only proves, but explains why the things that were going on in the sky at the time of Christ's birth was it was impossible as far as timing goes, and it was just
exactly. And that's the thing. It's like some people believe that the Great Pyramid was built during the age of Leo, which would have been when the constellation of Leo came up over the horizon, I believe in the eastern sky, probably in the spring or a certain time of year. And so when you look at the Sphinx, when you look at the Sphinx, its head looks very small compared to its body. And my belief in that is that some pharaoh many, many years later said, "Oh, I think my face would look nice up there. Let's carve that thing down." I think it was a lion.
A lot of people think that, and a lot of people, I've heard that, and it's very compelling stuff because you're right. You're right. It seems like disproportionate. There should have been something much bigger there, and perhaps it was.
Well, I've always known that. I think the stars and the sky and God, it's all really important. But thank you so much for playing that, and I'll watch it again. It was absolutely fascinating show.
Well, thank you, Jenny, and I'll be watching it tonight as well because I get a kick out of that, and like I said, it just adds the improbability level of all of that. It just makes you wonder whose hands at work here. Thanks again for the call. Tonight, 9:30. The first 30 minutes is actually really interesting as well. So there you have it. All right, let's jump into this. Now, this was yesterday. Tracy put this up. Who the hell is this? Drones are sophisticated. Wait, let me click through to see where this is from. All right, here, listen to this guy.
In Morris County, I don't know how many mayors sent a letter to you this morning asking for a clarification. What can you tell us? What is going on, and why is it taking so long to come up with an explanation?
Yeah, it's a good, I don't blame people for being frustrated. Let me say, most importantly, right up front, we see no evidence, and I say we, this includes Homeland Security, FBI, Secret Service, our state police, authorities at all levels of government. The most important point to say is we don't see any concern for public safety.
See, here's the thing. They keep saying that, and we know that they'll lie to us about anything. These are just very basic talking points about things in the sky. But the New Jersey aspect of this story has really only become very popular in the last couple of weeks. Prior to that, we were getting these headlines about swarming unidentified aerial vehicles Not necessarily anything that was, seemed to be anti-gravitic, but they were just swarming, drone-like, but they were in fleets, and they were over very highly restricted airspaces. And over the course of that time, you would have the Pentagon or Langley or all these places making statements about it, that they're there, and we're trying to figure out what they are. Figure out what they are. If you and I flew anything over that airspace, it would be shot down. So the fact that the most defended airspaces on the East Coast are kind of like, what the hell? What's going on? And nobody has any answers. Right off the bat, my bullshit meter is going off. What is this all about? And they keep saying that they pose no threat, but they're sophisticated, and as Tracy said, top officials are meeting all day long. They have nothing to offer the public. How do you know that they're no threat? How do you even know that? This morning, Douglas McGregor tweeted this out. Congressman tells Fox News a credible source had revealed that the New Jersey drones were launched from the eastern seaboard and are from China and Iran. China and Iran. You want to hear that? This is Jeff Van Drew. He claims that that Iran has stationed a so-called mothership off the U.S. East Coast, reportedly launching drones now flying over New Jersey.
In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the East Coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been.
Did you hear that? Now, when I heard that line, I said, okay, I've never heard of New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew before, but he is either mentally handicapped or he's part of the operation. We know it's not our own government because if they were part of this, they would have told us. What a dummy. What an absolute dummy.
Some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down.
Now, here's my question to you. I was thinking about this a long time ago. Why don't we shoot them down? Why don't we shoot them down? Then I start realizing why you can't shoot them down. I was thinking about this all last week. You give everybody special permission to go out there and hunt turkey and deer when the population gets too much and they might start running out onto parkways and highways around here in the Northeast. But then again, there's a big difference between giving a few people temporary seasonal bow and arrow licenses to go hunt along the side of a highway and letting anybody say, hey, load some slugs into that shotgun of yours and you can shoot down anything that's over your house because you know what will happen. First of all, you don't want property damage. Even if this thing is a foreign presence in the sky, you're talking about things falling, property damage, people getting killed, hit in the head, people start, then people will just be shooting television news helicopters, planes in descent. It would be nuts. It would be nuts when you think about it. But then I also wondered, what happens if people start taking shots at these things and they literally realize that they cannot bring them down, that nothing's happening, that they're hitting them, but nothing's happening? That would be interesting too, right? But again, what they're clustered around. It's so public. They've got more lights than an airplane. There is no real attempt here at being stealthy. And meanwhile, and so you would think that after a while you would get some state law enforcement officer coming out and saying, we heard about this over the last week. We looked into it. We found the source. People are being investigated and blah, 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 or telling us what the hell it was. The fact that every couple of days we have a higher and higher authority coming out to affirm that nobody knows what's going on. We're trying to figure this out. And then we have this jockeying back and forth. This guy from New Jersey says that there is a mothership of Iranian origin that is hanging out off the coast. Well, our Coast Guard doesn't see this. The Carnival cruise ships don't see this. I mean, what are you talking about? How advanced is the Iranian Navy? I mean, I know that they have taken quite a bit of. Didn't they seize like a couple of gunboats of ours a while ago? Wasn't that the Iranians that made our Navy officers cry on like one of those ransom videos? It was pathetic during the Obama administration. I mean, God knows what they do have. They have something of value. It definitely came from us. But then we have this. So that Jeff guy, the congressman from New Jersey, says one thing about the mothership, and then the Pentagon comes out. By way of Zero Hedge, we have this one. Pentagon denies congressman's claim of an Iranian mothership launching drones off the U.S. coast. So who are we supposed to believe? This guy on television who had, I don't know, he really might have been just naive. Do you really think he's part of some grand operation? I never heard of him before. He might just be naive, gullible, a little bit stupid to think that the United States government would tell us if they were doing something weird. But maybe he is naive because maybe in that state he was telling the truth, that he heard from a good source that there is a mothership. Perhaps it's not Iranian, but maybe there is an offshore mothership. Perhaps these things are coming out of the water. Maybe we're talking, I've heard all the theories about perhaps, these things are posing as traditional drone unmanned objects that are propelled by, 6 hour, I guess that you'd have to be up in the air for a long time. How good is the batteries? Then again, you're talking about vehicles that are the size of Volkswagens. So it's got to be something. And anything that we could buy, somebody has much better locked up in some bunker somewhere. But perhaps it is far advanced technology that is masking itself as something a little bit more primitive by putting off some kind of, audible hum or buzz that would be easily identified by someone like you and me as, blades of a propeller. And maybe it's just a trick. Maybe it's just a way to cloak itself. Meanwhile, this thing could probably dip into the ocean and just hide out there. I don't know. But they want to be seen. It's there for a reason. And now we're playing games with the higher authorities in the country, not just in New Jersey. There's not any truth to that, Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh told reporters on Wednesday afternoon, hours after Republican Congressman Jefferson Van Drew of New Jersey claimed on Fox News that Iranian drones were flying over New Jersey skies. There's no Iranian ship. Here's what she said.
Jen. Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near a sensitive installations? The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here.
Yeah, but I'm sure that local law enforcement are investigating these things, even though why hasn't one been followed back to its point of origin? Why? After a couple of days of what the hell are these things and who they belong to, they're flying over my house at night. At the very least, it's violating sound ordinance. No, New Jersey doesn't have sound ordinances for late night and all that shit. Especially if you're not living next to an airfield. Especially if you are living next to an airfield. We do. We're a couple of miles away from Westchester County Airport. So there are, every once in a while, there'll be a late night plane coming in, a red eye or something. But for the most part, it is very, very low traffic at night because they don't want to keep people awake. You would think after a couple of days of no answers, the easiest thing you can do is to attach one of your own drones or a police helicopter to following this thing around until you find out where it went. What the hell are we talking about here? Follow the thing home. Follow it home. This is all bullshit. She also claims they're not U.S. military drones. They're trying to figure it out and all that. Yeah, well, that, like I said before, that was a local issue. But when it was flying over, I don't know if it was the Pentagon or if it was CIA, it's ridiculous. War Clandestine says if it's not Iran, a foreign entity, or U.S. military, that would leave intelligence community, private entity, or civilian, and extraterrestrial. If it was private entity or civilian, they would have been taken to task quick. Because I'll tell you one thing. If I had a radio transmitter and I wanted to open up myself a nice little pirate radio station over here this week, I would go live for a couple of hours before somebody is knocking on my door, where they would have tracked me down to figure out where I was transmitting, what was going on, and who I was interfering with. That would have been that quickly. If I opened up a legitimate pirate radio stream over here, I would have been taken care of. No way. So that's from the Pentagon. Now, we'll take a couple of calls in just a second, but first I want to show you what we threw Grok. Okay, Mike from Maryland threw this to Grok. Said, "Hi Grok, check out this main news story, and it's about Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, the mysterious drones. Take a listen to this. Congressman's claims, speaking on Fox News, suggested that the drones might be Iranian and could be potentially from a mothership launched about a month ago. He emphasized, and what does that mean, mothership? Does that mean an actual seafaring ship? That these things are going back to, landing, getting recharged, getting resupplied, and then going out and conducting their missions completely uninhibited? That they're going back out to a seafaring ship? Or is there a floating ship in the sky that has been there for a couple of weeks that nobody has seen even in broad daylight? What the hell does that mean? He emphasized the need for these drones to be shot down due to potential threat that they pose. Pentagon's response said no. There's no evidence of an Iranian ship off the coast of U.S. or any foreign entity launching drones toward the U.S. Context and speculation. The drone sightings have led to various speculations regarding their origins, including possible links to foreign surveillance or even extraterrestrial activity. Yet official investigations by agencies like the FBI have not confirmed any such connections. The FBI can't even figure out why somebody would shoot hundreds of people in Las Vegas. They have no clue what was driving the identityless 20-something-year-old that tried to take out Donald Trump when the Secret Service disappeared in July and left a complete open lane for him. Why would you think the FBI is going to produce anything? Seriously. I heard Christopher Wray stepped out today. That's nice. We'll see if Kash Patel makes that agency worth a shit for a couple of years before hopefully he shuts it down and sends that back to the States as well. That would be wonderful. Then we have here additional theories on what's going on. This is another thing that we threw to Grok. Additional theories. Classified military technologies. There's speculation that these drones could be part of U.S. military or government project. Some experts suggest that they might be testing advanced, possibly secretive drone technology, including swarm capabilities or surveillance equipment. This theory is supported by the drone's advanced behavior and the fact that they've been spotted near sensitive military installations like the Picatinny Arsenal. I'll tell you one thing it kind of reminded me of. It kind of reminded me of those hunter-killers. The hunter-killers from Terminator 2. You know, in the opening of Terminator 2, when they're in the future and they're fighting the robots and they have those big drones that are coming over. Those are unmanned craft looking over, and those are the hunter-killers. And I'm looking at those, and, everybody right now, think about if you go into the future and that shit actually really becomes true. This is the moment where people are looking up at those things and they're a little bit unnerved. God knows where it could all go. Non-human intelligence. Some individuals on X have suggested that drones exhibit behavior more akin to unidentified aerial phenomena or UFOs, such as a silent propulsion and instant maneuvers. I didn't hear any silent propulsion. I didn't see instant maneuvers. I've been seeing floating over trees, floating, hovering. Listen, if we saw hard right-angled turns at high speeds, then we're in business. We're cooking with gas at that point. I didn't see any of that. Foreign adversary surveillance, that could be one. Commercial or defense contractor testing, that's another thing. Again, if that's the case, it should be on the books. All right, I know that there is limited government oversight, but there are parts of the government who know exactly who is working on what projects and whatever. So it's either we're not being told and everybody's lying, which it seems that way. But psychological operation or a false flag. Grok came up with this. There's a small contingent that speculates that these activities might be part of a psychological operation or leading up to a false flag event designed to either test public reaction or to justify future security measures or military actions. This theory, however, lacks substantial evidence. And then radiation detection. One rumor captured on X suggested that these drones might be involved in searching for lost nuclear material just in somebody's backyard in New Jersey. Given their rumored capability to detect radiation, this theory, however, remains unverified and speculative. So it's really, it's interesting. But a lot of these things are just being dragged from the internet where everybody is trying to throw out theories because nothing that is being made publicly available really makes sense at all. So that's where we are right now. Today, we got news of a mothership. And then as soon as a very confident, perhaps slightly naive member of Congress came out and made that declaration to the world, the Pentagon reeled him back and said, no, it's not true. Well, where did he hear that from and what's happening? So real quick, a break. When we come back, your calls, all topics are on the table. 914-200-0269. See you in a second.
Quite frankly, contributed to the death of 7 million people because of the funding of gain-of-function experiments in the Wuhan lab.
I want it, won't give, but you got getting closer, baby. Hear me breathe. You make me shiver and shake. Baby, don't stop. Take it to the top.
Welcome to Perpetual Health Minute, brought to you by Quite Frankly. Extra, extra, read all about it. Red dye number 3 may be going away. Now, with all the pearl clutching about Robert F. Kennedy and what he's going to do to the food supply, red dye number 3 was actually banned in 1990 in cosmetics because of its carcinogenic potential, but has remained in the food supply. But it seems now that even NBC News may be on board with removing this product. And remember, even when the evidence is clear, as stated in this article, it can take decades for the FDA to remove products from market. So the best thing you can do, because today it's red dye number 3, tomorrow yellow 5, red 40, doesn't really matter. The best thing you can do is shop in the grocery store around the perimeter. Red meat, fish, eggs, milk, leafy green vegetables, fruits. Those are the products you should be buying. It's going to be your best way to avoid the unforeseen. The precautionary principle always says it's better to be safe than sorry. If you like this video, please follow the new Perpetual Health Rumble channel. You can also find us at perpetualhealth.substack.com. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Back to the show.
And gents, let's take some of your calls. How the hell you feeling, my friends? It's good to have you here. 914-200-0269. 702, you're on the air. Go ahead, give me something.
Hey, Frank, this is Browntail. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Great to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Hey, well, just weighing in on the drone thing. A couple of things that come out. And before I was in my prior life, before I was a Browntail, I was actually a C-130 pilot flying a lot of combat missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and whatnot. And a lot of times, like the Predator drones and some of those assets were in the area. So I've gotten a chance to tangle in the airspace with those guys. And one of the things that's striking me about what's going on with this stuff, one, the lighting's over, so it's obviously it's man-made. It's something here.
Yes. And it's not only that, Browntail, the lighting is over. It's bright. It's very, very noticeable. It's also, these craft are loud. They're buzzing. They're whatever the hell is going on here, public attention is definitely part of the operation.
Right, yeah. And I think it might be a psyop, but here's the thing. If they're as big as they say they are, then it's got to be a state actor. Or like a sheriff department or law enforcement, or you know where I'm going at?
Yep.
In other words, it's not just, Frank and Branto going out to Radio Shack and, putting one together and harassing South Jersey Shore,
Yeah.
So it's got to be either a state agency or something like that. The other thing is, if it was pure military, I would imagine they would be more. They'd have NBC compatible lights. In other words, covert lighting, invis compatible lighting that would be on the aircraft that you couldn't see it with the naked eye. So you'd need to have NVGs or something of that kind of nature in order to see it.
So I would have to imagine that you're, even though you know as much as I do, unless you know something else you're not telling us, that you're, just from your experience alone, you think that this is probably state.
So here's my conspiracy theory. I don't know if you'd be open up to it. Hopefully optimistic that maybe the white hats are doing it's drones, unless you're going to hang a hellfire from a drone and kill something with it. The only other function it serves is like surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're tracking someone or you're collecting signals intelligence from an area. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this has been going on for over a week. So either they're tracking movement on someone or a group, or they're trying to collect, and this may be part of the op too, to see what the public at large's reaction is to this stuff. Because God forbid, if it's a foreign state actor, first question would be going to the Pentagon and going, why is our sovereign airspace violated by these freaking Iranians? That may be part of the all of a sudden now you got a couple of Iranians in a fucking pardon my French, a couple of Iranians in a rowboat, launching these things off the Jersey Shore. that doesn't bid well to the taxpayer. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely, 100%. And again, I think that what you lay out there just, I think, reinforces everything else that most people are thinking at this time, because it's one thing for this to have been a 48-hour to 72-hour mystery. Everybody's trying to figure out who the pranksters are that are harassing the quiet, sleepy countryside of New Jersey. But now here we are in 2 weeks, and they have rolled out every kind of spokesperson from every intelligence head that they can find, and the ambiguity with which they speak is really something else. Thank you for the call, Browntail. That's something else. Is this for real? Hold on. Somebody just sent me something about the chick that slept with 100 men in one day. Porn star so-and-so, her name's Lily, test positive for chlamydia, gonorrhea, and HSV2 after sleeping with 100 men in one day. Is this for real? The only reason why I ask is because I'm surprised that she only has 3 sexually transmitted diseases. But then again, 20 guys probably had chlamydia, and it's only going to count once. God, this is sick. Oh, this is sick. The world needs to heal. The world really needs to heal. I was so scared. I was so scared about STDs and shit when I was single. I remember one of the first, I think one of the oldest conversations I remember having with Rob. We were at the gym that we both worked at, and I was nervous about a yearly STD check years ago. And then I told him, I don't know, man, I just can't. I think I got AIDS. I have AIDS. And Rob, like, one of the first conversations I remember having with Rob is him telling me how almost impossible it is to get AIDS unless you've got open. Oh, forget about it. He was just calming me down. You don't have AIDS. Stop it. This woman lines up for 100. Oh my gosh. What the hell was I ever worried about? The way that some people live. I mean, I wasn't a saint, but the way that some people live, that's just horrible. Anyway, let's take another call, shall we? 480, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, who's this?
This is Luke from Arizona.
Hey, Luke, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. So what do you think about tonight?
Tonight's awesome. Good night. Love the talks with Jay. The drone thing, has anyone in New Jersey ever flown a drone towards it?
Oh, see, that's the thing. I have not heard from anybody, and I'm waiting for somebody to say and to bring up something as I don't know, logical as that. As I said before, like when this got to like 72-hour territory, and now local and state authorities are having their attention be brought to it by citizens constantly, you would think that they would at least put a police copter in the air to just do the rounds and follow this thing back to wherever the hell it's going to go, or to at least follow it until it runs out of batteries and then recover it to try to get some data out of it. It's nonsensical as how this situation has been treated for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. It'd definitely be interesting to see what would happen if someone got close to it with a drone.
Yeah, it would be, and I would hope that somebody would be ready to do that, and nothing yet. So you're thinking on the right track, but apparently they can't get their shit together out there in Jersey.
Yeah, I don't believe anything that the Pentagon's telling us. That's all bullcrap for sure.
Yeah. The Pentagon seemed to be in damage control. Then again, it could also be just kabuki theater, where the guy they probably, it's not out of the realm of possibility for the guy from New Jersey to have had that information planted with him from a reliable source. He feels like he needs to go and tell the public, and then the Pentagon, who planted the initial information with this guy, can go out there and deny it and create discord and confusion and mixed messages. And that's how you control public perception as well. And you keep building up the curiosity. It's almost like, the lottery. The lottery goes past $1 billion and suddenly everybody's paying attention to it,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, I just called to tell you, you rock.
Well,
Love your show. Been listening for years.
Thank you, Luke. And I hope to hear from you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.
There you go. There's Luke in Arizona. Having a good night. Having a good night indeed. Okay. What else do I have over here? Oh, here's a call. Timothy Gordon, were you listening tonight?
Yeah, I was in and out, Frank. What's up?
Oh,
Frank,
nothing much, dude. Nothing much. It's usually we have at least a little bit of time to talk to each other every Christmas season. So who knows what comes up over the next week or so. But I don't know. We only have about 8 minutes left over here. Do you have anything that you wanted to add to tonight's conversation? It was a lot about, of course, the rebunking of Christmas by going against all of the popular debunks that pop up around this time with overlays of paganism and everything else to try to diminish the importance and significance of the holiday. So I don't know what you usually like to bring up around this time of year whenever that topic pops up, but I'd love to hear your strongest points.
Well, maybe we should do a show on some of the nativity symbols. But Jimmy Akin has a great treatment of December the 25th and all of the scientific evidence for December the 25th and why it's not just a mythic recreation of old creation narratives or whatever. It's a ridiculous story. There's a lot of strong evidence, even surrounding the Shroud of Turin, that demonstrates that it was winter of that basically all of the Christian timeline is accurate for both the birth and the death of Christ. And I guess we don't have the time to get into it all right now. But also I directed you, Frank, because you'd asked, to an article I'd written 7 or 8 years ago about all of the shepherd's crook and the shepherds themselves and the star itself. Some really, really cool anagogical stuff that's true both historically and anagogically about the Christmas iconography.
Hey, let me ask you this. I might have asked you before, but since we're going to be airing it after the show concludes in a few minutes on the website, did you ever watch the Star of Bethlehem documentary?
No, I need to watch it. I was thinking of getting it out and showing the family just because you brought it up with me on the phone earlier. But I need to. Have you? Watched it, right?
I did watch it. I watched it a couple of times, maybe about 2 years ago. I didn't watch it last year, but I remembered early enough this year to say we have to have that in rotation for the show, or in at least after hours. So tonight around 9:30 Eastern time. So that'll be about, you're in Central, right?
Yes.
About 8:30 on my website is when it's going to start. And if you got any time, you get to peek in on it. I mean, it's from an astronomical standpoint, you want to talk about the gears of the clock working in perfect chorus to create a incredible turn of events at just the right time. I mean, how the stars are aligned to tell the very same story you're talking about here. I mean, it's just like the universe falling in line. It's an incredible story. You should take a listen to it.
Maybe I will. I've heard that, and I know some of the facts. And I think Jimmy Akin with Catholic Answers has done a good job telling at least part of the same story. So, but I'd love to take a look. And it's a great service you do this time of the year, Frank, by always covering this stuff as objectively as you can. Objectively, it just ends up vindicating the Christian worldview.
Well, it's always great to have people like you hanging out with us whenever in need, and as well just in leisure time too. But I have it right here. You wrote it in 2018, the most overlooked images of the Nativity. Maybe you come on next week. I'll talk to you after the show, and we'll get that ready to go.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I just wanted to say great work with Jay. I do a Lord of the Rings reading group. That same one that I started last Hobbit Day. We're just finishing the trilogy. You were originally going to be in on that. We're starting September the 22nd of 23. We're just finishing doing a chapter a week, the complete trilogy. And I had that until what would be 8 your time. But then I put on you and Jay finishing up, and it was good news that Alex Jones won his judgment and all that. Looks like a good.
You see, that's what I'm talking about, man. I was thinking about The Hobbit and the three books, and I was saying, with those big trilogies, I don't know. That's the fact that you're almost 2 years in and you're just about to wrap it all up. I would love doing that, but I feel like how many people have dropped off over the course of time? Because that's my biggest fear. Doing a big book or a part of a series is that people will just drop off like flies.
Yeah, they did. It was probably 60 to 70% attrition rate.
Damn.
And we wound up with like 6 true blue troopers who saw it all the way through. I don't know if you know the structure of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but every book of the 3 hardback books is actually comprised by book 1 and book 2 in Fellowship, book 3 and book 4, Two Towers, book 5 and book 6 in Return of the King. And I just said, because I wanted to be done by Christmas, I said, all right, for book 6, the second half of Return of the King, we're going 2 chapters a week. And we wouldn't even be finished by Christmas. It would be February, March before we'd be finished if we kept going at the 1 chapter a week pace. So it would at least be February.
I still think about the first book club session. You and me doing Windswept House, that was over 600 pages, and we were doing about 60 to sometimes I don't know. I think that went like 13 weeks. I think after that book, I started doing anywhere from, for a thicker book, anywhere from 80 to 100 pages a week, just because it's crazy. Just because we wanted to get these things done within a month so that we can read at least 5 books a year. But so it always makes me wonder how long the book is going to be. Fahrenheit 451, and I didn't realize how short it was, because when I bought it, it's a thick book, but I realized that half of the book was all extra material and interviews with Ray Bradbury and everything else like that. It's going to be like a 40-page read in January, but I guess that's good to start a new year. Something a little bit short. Yeah. But
I kept getting behind on Windswept. The Great Divorce was, I think, the second one we did together in the reading group, and that was my pace. We were doing 40 pages per week, I think, with that. But
maybe you'll join me, and I mean, you don't have to co-host. Obviously, I'll just be doing it with Steve and Jonathan in March, leading up to Easter. But we're doing the sequel to The Robe. We're doing The Big Fisherman now in March. You should read The Robe real quick, and then you should get in on The Big Fisherman, man.
Okay, maybe I'll do that.
You'd love it. You would love it. The Robe was really sensational last year, and it was so well timed. You should read along and actually read along to the sessions that we archived on the show. I'll send you the whole series. That'll be good.
Okay, you did that with that's a little book, isn't it?
No, it was over 300 pages, I think, but it was magical, dude. It really was awesome. There's quite a few people who had they were already on the path to reversion or conversion, and that reading session was really sensational. I gotta send it to you.
Oh, with you and Steven.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope, man. Yeah. Maybe I'll try to catch up and read it with you guys in March, starting on Ash Wednesday.
Last year I remember the first session was right before it was crazy how it all lined up, because the first session ended. I don't know if you know the plot. I gotta wrap this up now, but the plot is you have this Roman centurion and you have his slave. He gets in trouble in Rome, and he's kind of like punished by being sent out to Palestine to be in the Holy Land and looking out for one of these, these kind of like dustbin garrisons out there. And he happens to be in the Holy Land for the time of the crucifixion. In fact, he's actually charged with being the executioners. And it's an incredible faith journey there for not only the slave but the centurion, and the grappling over the robe that Jesus wore. But the first session that we had, the reading ended on Demetrius, the slave's observing of Jesus coming into Jerusalem on the donkey on Palm Sunday, and we read it the day after Palm Sunday, and it just felt so, everything had aligned for that book. It was really awesome, and I think that you'll fly through it, because I know Stephen and his wife jumped on for it too, because she was so curious, and she finished the book before all of us, so I think you're going to love it.
Faith, yeah, she's a great lady. Yeah, maybe I'll do that, man. Well, I know you got to go, but let's do the hidden symbols in the nativity next week sometime. And always looking for a collab with you, Frank.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Have a great night.
Peace. You too, bro.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Even a call from Timothy Gordon. All right, it's 9 o'clock on the dot. It's almost like I planned it that way. So I'll see you guys at some point tomorrow. I'll go live. I should be able to get home at some point and go live from Studio B, at least just for an hour, and do some calls. There will be no 7 o'clock show, though, because we're taking Aurora to Christmas Castle. And hopefully I can be live from there around broadcast time on my phone. But if there is not enough service, I will be taking a lot of footage again that we can analyze with my family on December 23rd when we have that family broadcast. So no show tomorrow, and at least in the form that you know it. And I'll see you on Friday night, 7 o'clock, right here, no doubt about it. Let me make sure that nobody else has left any super chats I didn't see. Gino says, always love when my two favorites get together. Sorry I couldn't see it live. Love to you and the family, Francis. Look forward to seeing this show tomorrow. Well, I'm so happy, and I can't wait to hear what you think, because I love doing tonight's broadcast. It was fun. Paul says, hey, Frank, regarding the drone's mothership, it could be a Club K system in a cargo ship off the coast. I remember Project Pelican. The Kenyan handed off control of some of our ports to shady outfit. Thanks always. Merry Christmas, Franklies. There's a theory. But regardless of what kind of a cargo ship it is, if it's seafaring or if it's something else, there's got to be a way to follow this thing back to its dock. It's got to be something. All right, the Sentinel says the drone distraction has a purpose, just like the big white balloons did last year. Like there isn't enough other problems to worry about: Syria, Ukraine, Israel, etc. And it gets the Daniel Penny win out of the headlines. January 20th, 2025 can't come quick enough. I'm with you on that one, Sentinel. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at some point. And become a sponsor. Go do some Christmas shopping on the affiliates page on quitefrankly.tv. And starting in just a couple of moments is Quite Frankly After Hours. And just to say once again, for you guys who may have missed it, here's what you have, and I really think that you should treat yourself tonight. We have to open up suspicious observers, dark comets, magnetic pole shifts, solar flares. That's only a couple of minutes long report. Then you have Speak Life. This is about a 25-minute long video. Bill Maher and Stephen Fry debunked over Christian Christmas myths. That's about 25 minutes long, and that'll bring you right to about 9:30, 9:35. That is when Rick Larson's The Star of Bethlehem begins, and that'll be about an hour or so. And it is worth it. Sit back, relax, and just take it in. All right? I'll be watching with you. I'll jump into the chat from time to time. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. Of course. Of course.
I'll catch you on the flip side.